Okay, so we're back at Riverside Park, behind the abandoned rifle range, and there's a trash dump back here. Now, some of you are going to say, well, that's probably the most fitting place for you, and at times I'd be inclined to agree. What I want to talk about today is, first and foremost, that littering's pretty shitty. Don't do it. This should matter to you if you're living kind of off the grid or on the road like I am, mostly because you often rely on nature for your next meal or your drinking water. The Yellowstone River that runs through here, I don't feel comfortable drinking. Now, purifying it, boil it, hit it with iodine or bleach, if not both, you'll be okay. And I'm going to make a video on that here in the future. But I will say that you have to think about rainwater runoff and how degrading plastics and even tires, there are several out here. Here's one we're standing next to. Have a hugely negative effect on drinking water. They can be bad for wildlife. Rabbits, which are often a staple of your diet. They shouldn't be by themselves, as I've touched on. But, you know, they will eat just about fucking anything, including cigarette butts, plastic, and when that gets in their bloodstream and you eat it, it gets into yours. It's bad for you. However, places like this can often be a gold mine, and there's nothing we can really do to stop trash dumps from occurring, right? Regardless of all the fines and legislature and what have you, they're going to continue to happen. However, let's say you don't have the luxury of a vehicle or a tent or, you know, some sort of maybe an abandoned structure or any sort of temporary shelter. You can make your own with places like this. So first and foremost, the one thing that stands out to me is this piece of plywood and that old, what looks like a chicken feeder maybe. Now, of course, these are rotten. I wouldn't really want them to hold any weight. But hey, for a water trough for an animal, that'd be perfect. For a lean-to, that plywood would stop the wind and most of the rain, I'm sure. These oil drums, well, they're perfect for a fire. You see it in movies, bums like me standing around a burning trash can. Tires, a good stack of tires with some of those cross ties from over there. A few of those can also serve as a windbreak or wall. You name it. Now, I can tell that after the rain shut down, some people probably wanted to continue shooting here. As you can see, a lot of this stuff has bullet holes all in it, and I suspect it may have even been part of the range at one point. But I can tell, if you know, I've kind of dug around my feet in here, there's 9mm shell casings, there's shotgun shells, shotgun wads, just all over the place, that have clearly been fired from behind the berm. As well, you know, if they were more recent, we'd be able to see them like I can, but being that this range has been closed since, I believe, 2015, it'd be kind of difficult to find a lot of the shell casings without a shovel or just really looking for them. Plus, why would they be behind the berm? So, moving on to the next topic, it's good to stay up on your marksmanship if you can afford the ammo. At the same time, you know, find a secluded, appropriate place for it. Try to obey the law the best you can in this circumstance, because it's already hard enough without having to make court and do jail time and all this other. And discharging a firearm in the city limits is a fairly serious misdemeanor. So, you know, if I pop my 45 right now, I'd probably have someone show up in about 5 minutes, and then I'd be in a mess I'd have to explain. So, in any case, just when you find places like this, try to think of stuff that you could use. There's an old bench out of a car. You could probably reupholster that and use it to keep you off the ground. It's been burnt up, but if you can find an old pillow or a mat or something to keep you off the springs, that'd keep you up off the ground. Remember, the ground is a heat sink, right? The ground will always be colder than the air around it, and it'll always be colder than you. So, if you're sleeping on the ground, your body temperature is going to plummet. Just the way thermal energy transfers. If you sleep directly on the ground, unless it's extremely warm out, you're probably going to end up hypothermic. So finding something to support you or insulate you, even that old piece of plywood, might be beneficial. As well as tires, like I touched on, tires are good for that. They're not the most comfortable, but it keeps you elevated, right? If it rains, if a snake crawls by, spiders, you name it, you don't want to be on the ground with all that stuff. So, stuff to think about. If I were not living in my truck, I could probably come out here and honestly do a public service cleaning some of this shit up and make a decent little shanty somewhere. But if I were going to do that, I'd do further south, maybe on BLM land, where it's still kind of illegal, but not as big a deal. So, but if you're one of these guys who just cannot stand the fact that some people don't have homes to live in, consider not giving us stuff like this. I say us because, yeah, you're right, I am technically homeless, but people that are desperate, if you're really concerned about getting homeless folks off the streets because you're just kind of an asshole, don't litter. Everyone wins that way.